Sup shitters, my name's Logan aka Spider Hands, and welcome to SB Talks, or SB Plays SB Talks, where I'm doing a follow-up to the previous video I did about the 3080s and PS5s and stuff like that. I don't feel the need to do like a full camera intro, just because I think it's better just to get straight into it in this instance. I'm just going to open up 3080s, and you've got this, right? It's been a bit of a trip. Bit of a trip with 3080s. You know, you've got Nvidia apologizing for their stuff up here. You know, publicly apologizes for RTX 3080 launch promises to ship more cards every week. Cancelled hundreds of orders that were made by bots. So hopefully that should increase the stock of them once those have all been processed. I doubt they're going to just put them out in a little bit. So I'd say, or maybe they will, just to kind of sort of fuck with the bots a little bit. There will be bad language in this, by the way. It's just the way I talk. If I'm doing like a Super Mario Maker stream, which I hope to get back to once I get a 3900X, I'll probably obviously tone down the language a little bit. But until then, it's just I think this is less aimed at kids and more aimed at people who can actually afford an $800 graphics card. So we have here the situation with 3080. And basically what happened is that Nvidia's websites and the other e-tailers' websites got overrun by these bots and scripts and stuff like that. As you probably already know, because the story has been quite well documented over the last couple of days. People basically missed out because the bots bought a whole bunch of graphics cards in bulk through a specific website that like people sign up to kind of use their services or something like that. And so they'd buy like 20 of these cards at a time, and then they just sell them off and make a 5-figure profit off of it, depending on how desperate people are. And a lot of the people that bought these cards were either too lazy to wait, or they were just wealthy and they just didn't care about it. But I need to basically say to those people, that even if you are rich enough to be able to afford a card like that, even if you don't consider it an expense, it doesn't mean you didn't get screwed. It doesn't mean you didn't get scalped. And what you're doing by just rolling with this behavior is enabling the people who are going to rip people off. And actually, in certain parts of the world, this behavior, like with ticket scalping, for example, it's illegal. So you're engaging in an activity which is highly unethical and will actually probably become law at some point against it, especially as technology continues to improve and it becomes more common. Something will happen that the American US government actually cares about in regards to scalping, and then they'll make a law about it. But apparently graphics cards are just not on the table at the moment, and it's just the way it is. It would also take a while probably to put a law through on that. You'd have to get, you know, the situation over in the States with the politics of it all is pretty thingamabobber. But anyways, yeah. So basically, Nvidia has apologized for the 3080 cards. You know, in terms of their performance, I mean, they're available in New Zealand, I think. I think they're available in New Zealand. Like PBTech sells them. Yeah. I think PBTech sells them. Yeah. So we've got 3080 cards here. That's a very cheap card there. That's very cheap. That's $1,469 for 10 gigs. So we actually have a whole bunch of them. You know, there's a few that are out of stock. Like these EVGA cards are out of stock just because they are the real beasts of the pack. You know, I'm just gonna make sure that my webcam is on my face. Yeah, it's kind of not, is it? It kind of needs to be brought up a little bit, and like that. Kind of, it's now a little bit off. There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. The prices aren't that bad. I mean, I paid $1,300 for my 2080, and if you get, how much is it? 3080 versus 2080. What's the difference in performance on that? What's the difference on that? Yeah, so there's a 52% to 49% increase in performance. Yeah, over the board, it's 50% faster, effectively. And they're around the same price. So kudos to Nvidia for releasing a card that is actually far superior to their previous generation. Like that, when you think about it, like, honestly, I'm happy with my 2080, and I'm going to be doing a video kind of parodying the the obsession with the newest and greatest thing at some point by playing a whole bunch of games that I have at 440p and showing that you can still run them on a 2080. Because here's the thing, right? I know that the 3080 is quite powerful, but honestly, man, you could probably buy a 2080 from like a friend that just doesn't need it anymore, that's kind of selling it to get funds for a 3080 when they're finally available. And then you could probably just roll with like the 13th fastest graphics card in the world. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to have a bad time with a 2080. Sure, you might have a bit of time with the ray tracing 3080. I know Fortnite has ray tracing, but honestly, I wouldn't really recommend. I think a lot of that stuff is available for the 2080 anyways, like DLSS and stuff like that. It's just, you don't really need to spend that much on a graphics card now, because either you can wait for the AMD stuff to see how they pull out, because they're probably going to go a little bit cheaper than Nvidia, although Nvidia are going to be reportedly, you know, the rumors are that they're going to announce like TI cards for the 1370 and the 3060 Ti. But in terms of like, you could probably get one of these 2080s now for about two-thirds of the price. So let's just say 600. So even 600 is going to get you it's going to get you very good 1080p gameplay. Let's not forget that the 2080 was like able to do most games, if not all games, at like 1080p and 1440p. At like high stats. Maybe not max stats on 1440p, especially not 120 frames. But at least 60 FPS on most, if not all games, on like high settings. And honestly, like, I think I made another video on this as well, that you don't actually need to run a 4K monitor unless it's like huge. Because depending on how close you are to the monitor, it's like if you've got like a big TV that you want to game on 4K, right, okay, go for gold, dude. Buy like a 3090. But if you're playing in 1440p and you're like this close to the screen, you probably don't need a 4K monitor. You're not really going to notice the details due to the things like how we notice pixel density and stuff like that. You'll see, if you go really close, you'll see it. But on a screen like a 27-inch or even a 32-inch, you're not really going to notice too much of a difference between 4K and 1440p, apart from a decrease in frame rates. But that said, you really don't want to be going 1080p with a 3080 anyways. So I honestly, like, if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get the 3080 or the 2080, go for the 2080. Just make sure that you've seen it being tested, that you know that it works, and buy it off someone you trust. Don't buy it off a nobody on eBay. For the same reason that you shouldn't be buying 3080 off someone you don't know, that's not like a trusted reseller. No, that's what we're trying to avoid. You have to kind of be able to trust the person you're buying it off, because you never know what they'll be up to. There's a lot of hype for this 3080 at the moment, and it's a shame, because what's happened is that people have been abused and manipulated, and there's a FOMO thing and all that. I just feel bad for people who paid so much money. I get it. Like, if you're wealthy, you want to flex, like you want to have a good time and show everyone how successful you are. It doesn't really show success if you are, it doesn't really show success to me if you're spending more money than you need to on something. It just shows to me that you're desperate for attention and for people's sort of validation. And I think that it's just kind of fucking embarrassing, to be real. Yeah. There's also 3090 that's been like released, and it's actually, this is what's kind of sad in a certain extent. It is quite a bit better, arguably, than the 2080. I mean, it's obviously much better. But the problem is that you're paying a total of like $2,310 for this, whereas you're paying $1,075 for the 2080, right? And herein lies the problem, is that unlike the 3080, where like it's the same price roughly, but you're getting a 50% uptake in performance, the 3090 is an extra $1,200, and you're getting 80%. It doesn't make fiscal sense. It's basically the RTX of this graphics cards. It's the Titan, of the graphics cards in this generation. You don't need it unless you really have a use for that 24 gigs of VRAM. Most gamers aren't going to need this. You're not. I think this is why the RTX is priced as it is. and why the 3090 is priced as it is. I think that the 3080 was to kind of solidify their position in the top echelon of gaming. For like because this is the thing that kind of I need to remind myself. A 3080 is still a very expensive graphics card. A 3090 is for people who are doing creation and stuff like that. They're doing big productivity tasks. They're like rendering 4 and 8K video and they're doing like video game design and 3D models and all this other stuff that you can use your video card to do, you know. The technology, as I understand it, between the 2000 and 3000 series for streaming is basically the same. So I don't think there's too much of a difference. But of course, if you have that extra VRAM, I mean, this, like, if you were like struggling with 11 gigs that you've got right here, you just need to pay a premium for it. And I think that even if the 2080 Ti was released at 1500, this is 2300. It's not going to be. Is it? Yeah, it's not. It's only 37. Actually, no. Comparatively to the 2080 Ti, it is actually. It's 32% faster than the 2080 Ti. So it's basically the 2080 Ti of the 3000 generation. Never mind. But yeah, today we're checking out the performance metrics, and Nvidia have done well. It's just a shame that they didn't really handle this very well. It is a shame that they didn't really have the ability to kind of. I would be thinking that they would have known about this. There's no way a company worth multiples of billions of dollars, like Nvidia, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, wouldn't have been aware of the fact that people might have been using bots to do this. And it's a shame that they didn't develop a way of stopping people from doing this. It's a shame they're doing it in post, but I guess it's okay for a company like this to look naive. You know, I guess that's just what we're being expected to do, is to look at Nvidia and go, oh, well, how could you have known? You know, sure, you hyped the fuck out of it and tried to tell everyone that it was twice as fast as a 2080. Like, when it isn't, it's like 50% faster. And it's also in benchmarks I've seen maybe 60 to 70% if I'm being generous. Not twice as fast, but hey, it's okay. I just get the feeling with Nvidia's launches that we're going to continue to have the same experience where we get burnt a little bit, and it's like, oh, that wasn't as bad as the time we got burnt heaps, so it's okay. And it's like Nvidia is slowly setting this bar of diminishing returns, in the sense that we become more and more tolerant of bullshit because we're desperate for the newest, biggest thing to put inside our rigs. And I cannot think of another way of justifying it aside from validation. Boredom. People are stuck in their homes, you know. And for people who like have nothing better to do, who have all this money, it's just they're being played like fools, man. And it makes me wonder how they got rich in the first place. Anyways, we're talking about the Sony PS5 as well today. Which is interesting. I don't think that this is as much of an issue as much as it was, but hang on. Because they got sold out as well, didn't they? Yeah, here we go. So Sony apologizes for PlayStation 5 pre-order disaster. This was to a far lesser extent, I think, than Nvidia. Sony... I'm glad that both of these companies have apologized. They needed to, at the bare minimum. Retailers went rogue and opened pre-orders early, a day ahead of the September. So that wasn't really Sony's fault, you know? Sites crashed and people panicked, wondering whether they get their hands on a next-gen console or not. Yeah, I'm assuming that if this is correct, that it's actually the fault of the retailers, and people got panicked, and then the website got overrun, and then it was just garbage. You know, we've got to add more chaos to the pre-order mess. Amazon reported on Friday that people who did secure pre-orders might see delays in their consoles. And this is kind of fucking jarring to me. It's this fucking obsessive consumer culture where, like, people are fucking... This might just be a little bit of hyperbole, But I get the impression that some people are having an actual fucking massive issue with the fact that they might not be getting their console on the day they expected it. It's a fucking gaming console. Like it's a gaming console. It's just a thing that you play video games on. I get it if like I would have gotten the fucking outrage if they'd been like, oh no, you will never get it and it will be garbage and you just have to suffer for the rest of your life. But it's like it's just not the day you expected it. Like if I had that kind of reaction every single time a company delivered something late to me, I'd have a fucking stroke at the age of 29. It's terrible. I don't think it's as, and I don't think that. I think I'm kind of reading too much into it. I'm hoping that people didn't get super duper upset about it. I mean, I can kind of get it because they're excited, but there is this sort of absurd sense of entitlement that if you order something, there can never be a single mistake. It has to be perfect because of the fact that I think we live in a society right now where businesses know so well about how to run a business that they can kind of ensure things go perfectly 99% of the time. And because of that, people have gotten accustomed to things revolving around their wants and needs because it's become more customer centric. But it's gone to a point where even if there's something like this, where there's just been a complete clusterfuck and things are confused and sort of stressful, people then are like, well, actually, fuck you. You've made the mistake. Give me my console right now. And it's kind of, I don't think it's as bad as that. I don't think it's, you got to kind of keep a critical sort of mind about stuff like this. You can't just get too emotionally involved in what you read. But yeah, I'm hoping that there wasn't any fucking too much of a fucking biggie about it. I guess the big thing with the PS5 at the moment is that Microsoft bought Bethesda. And so some of the games that were announced for PS5 were going to be PS5 timed exclusives, and now people were worried about that, but apparently Microsoft is going to respect that. Honestly, I'm glad that Bethesda got bought by another company because I can't trust Todd Howard to tie his own shoelaces. The guy is incompetent, is hell, greedy, and treats his customers like idiots. Fallout 76 was a shit show of the highest proportions. It was like diarrhea in a gaming cartridge, and I was just embarrassed for everyone involved. It sucks. I know that for the people working on the game, they probably wanted to make it incredible, but the corporate decisions behind it, the management decisions behind it were garbage. And it's often the case that it's not necessarily the individual technicians, but the people on the top who are kind of pulling stuff in a way that really just makes it sort of untenable. And it'll be good to see if Bethesda's sort of output improves now that it's got someone over top of it. It's going, if you fuck this up, there will actually be consequences, you know? Microsoft, they're not flawless. At all, but the Game Pass is sounding like it's pretty fantastic. The console sounds like it's going to be able to run games pretty well. It's a big step up over the Xbox One, as I understand it. I just think, honestly, in a sense, I think people are going to be spoiled this year with their gaming. In a perfect world where people would be able to get access to these consoles easily due to the lack of bots and the lack of confusion, the lack of retailers taking the piss, and the lack of billion-dollar companies being unable to sort of design a website properly, you'd be able to just enjoy a video game console on the day it released and buy it and just have fun, you know? I can remember when I had this big sale. Well, there was a big sale at the Noel Leeming that I have in town in Christchurch, and I just went there and I sat in the line till about 5 a.m. And like if they had told me that, if I stayed up until 5 a.m. because pre-orders for the stuff opened at 6 a.m. in the morning, right? If at 5 a.m. they told me, oh, just kidding, there's nothing, you can't have it. Or if suddenly I went into the door and like 1,000 people rushed in and just barged me over and just completely overwhelmed the store, just threw the money at the counter and ran off, I'd be fucking irate. I can understand why people are so angry about this. But in a perfect world where you could just go and buy something and then sort of go and enjoy it, like it'd be fantastic, I guess. In a way, because technology has come so far, there are people trying to take the piss with stuff, and they don't even have to be directly responsible for it. It can be like a script or a bot or like a piece of software, which I guess is a series of scripts. And then because you can't figure out who's directly responsible for the bot itself, you can't stop the problem. You know, you can only stop the individual users, but then they just become more and more sort of like clever about the way they hide themselves, and then eventually get to a point where you can't even tell who's like real and who's not. And yeah, ideally, people should not have been able to buy through bots, but they have, you know. I'm hoping that Nvidia doesn't kind of take the piss with this one, where like they just go, oh, okay, well, we know we're going to get all the sales we want because bots are going to buy them and resell them. If anything, it's probably giving Nvidia the wrong message in a sense, because it's like, oh, we could have charged way more because people are going to buy them regardless. I don't know. There's not much you can do in that sense when people are desperate. It's just, yeah, it's not a good situation at all. But yeah, an ideal world, just to get back to my original train of thought, people would be able to just have a lot of fun this year. You know, in new Xbox, new PS5, new gaming cards with 4K and 8K. People can maybe use it with their 4K televisions, and maybe if they have 8K, they'll finally be able to justify the expenditure on that technology. Although I'm saying that apparently the new LG 8K televisions aren't really coping well with 3080s. I don't know why you'd want to play something 8K anyways, but I guess if you're super wealthy, that's just how you do, you know? Yeah. I guess that's just me being out of touch with super wealthy people. Anyways, look. Yeah, in the middle of a global recession with COVID and all the other garbage going on, the climate disasters and all the religious and political issues on a global scale, it's been a fucking rough year. And I know I've said the F word a lot. I've just, you know, I don't usually say it this much, but I think I'm just expressing the frustration I have in a way that I'm trying to be mature about. We just need to be able to have access to like something which is a nice distraction. You know, if we're working 40 hours a week, we're stuck at home, you know. At this stage, like in UK, for example, if they don't put more restriction on some people, they're going to have about 50,000 cases a day by mid-October, according to specialists over there. And even if you think that coronavirus is just bullshit, that 5G, you know, all that kind of stuff, you got to admit that this isn't a very fun time, and that regardless of what side of the fence you're on, it's nice to have a distraction, right? And these people that are scalping at the moment, you know, if they're able to drop like that much money on 20 Nvidia cards at once, they're probably doing just fine. You know, if you're able to drop like 16K on 20 graphics cards, you're not like struggling. You know, you're not struggling at all. You're kind of just being a mean-spirited human being and just being an opportunistic piece of shit. But you know that, and you don't care. Because if you cared, you wouldn't fucking do it. This is the beauty in the horror of capitalism, where people can work hard, where meritocracy allows, or they can work dirty, where questionable ethics are concerned. And if they make their money, I guess, it's acceptable to some parts of the world and just a poor time for others. So I'm going to go. I'm not going to edit this video. I'm pretty happy with how I spoke about it. I don't think there's anything here I feel the need to sort of backtrack on. Thank you for watching this. Hopefully you'll enjoy your PS5. Hopefully you'll get a hold of a 3080, or if you're feeling a bit more reasonable and a bit more sort of like grounded, you know, it's disregarding the hype. Hopefully you can find another graphics card that may not be as expensive now, especially as the 3080 has gone and kind of trounced the 2080 and even the 2080 Ti. Just have fun. Just have fun. It's been a weird year. I won't say everything's been terrible, because it hasn't, but it's been a bit of a weird year. Yeah. Stay cool, shooters. And I will be back with Mario Maker soon. I will. I got a big tax bill to pay. Not like debt. It's like a profit. But I didn't expect to be needing to pay as much money on that. So I have to be careful about what I invest in. I'm chipping away at that at the moment. But yeah. I just want to have a good time when I stream, and the image quality is super important to me. And it really frustrates me when I have a stream that looks like shit. And I know that a lot of the professional streamers do, but to me, I want people to be able to see what I'm doing nice and clearly, and to just be able to enjoy the time. Anyways, see you later. Spider hands out.